looking at the agenda, I did talk to Ralph. I contacted Ralph and said, is there a nuclear ban collaborative anymore? And he said the schools of, what do they call it? The one about the schools that are participating in the nuclear arms race.
Schools of mass destruction.
Schools of mass, there we go. Thank you. He said they're still meeting. He is not aware of any other working groups except ours that are meeting. He does read our minutes, and he appreciates that. He has retired from the staff of ORIPA, and so he does not consider himself to be, our leerless feeder anymore. And so I don't know whether the collaborative as a conglomerate of working groups is really functioning anymore. There hasn't been a coordinating group meeting for quite a few months, he said, and he said he does not any longer feel that he has the authority to call one together. But as far as I know, he's the only person who has the list of names. So,
do they write to each other?
The coordinating committee, no. Well, I mean, if I went way back in my email, I might be able to find a list of people who were on the communications, and I could probably call such a thing if there was a reason to do so. But unless we have a good reason to call the collaborative back together again, which is something that we could talk about, but unless we have a reason to do that, I don't know that there's any purpose to doing it.
Well, the very fact that there is going to be this big meeting of all the countries that have ratified it at the UN at the end of November, and some of us are going to be there, and some of us are trying to decide. We've offered to help with a side event. They call these things that happen inside the building, kind of over lunchtime and when the main meeting isn't meeting. Wilf is helping ICANN to do something on divestment from nuclear weapons companies, which is it's a big deal. So it strikes me that, and I'm sure the people representing the Marshallese are going to be there, and I don't remember. So there's an affected communities subgroup, is there?
Well, there was an affected community subgroup, and that kind of crashed on the shoals of whether to be concerned about nuclear power as well as nuclear weapons. As you may recall, there was that big controversy over that, with Ralph saying that he didn't feel that we could talk about nuclear power, and the affected communities saying, well, we're not really interested in this if you don't talk about nuclear power because we are very affected by it.
So it wasn't just the Marshallese in that, it was actually people within the US near power stations.
It was people all through the Southwest who were affected by uranium mining and testing, and were affected by testing, no, not anymore, but certainly uranium mining and enrichment. So, those people who were downwinders and who are still living with the legacy of nuclear, uranium mining, tailings, and things like that, were pretty, as I understand it, were pretty offended by the idea that the people who are working on nuclear weapons did not want to include their concerns. So
but we just got Nuke News, Ellen, got an email from Linda Modica which I just remember the headline. Somewhere it said affected communities. Like some of them are still meeting and calling themselves affected communities.
Okay, well, whether
So-
that is a subgroup of the Nuclear Ban Collaborative or some other group, or whether
Yeah.
they've spun off and have created
Mhm.
their own working group, kind of in a way as we have. I don't know.
Anyway, it seems to me, as I say, we're all supposed to be concentrating on the TPNW, and here we have this big meeting coming up. So I'd like to know, what other subgroups are doing about that meeting, because there are side events outside the UN building that the public can go to. That ICANN is in charge of the NGOs for the TPNW, the same way as that Reaching Critical Will is in charge of the NGOs for the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. So if you go to the ICANN website, and it's full of information about this meeting of the it's 2MSP, second meeting of the states parties to the TPNW. So I'd certainly like to know what other people are doing. If some of them are going, and what they all had this point of view on the TPNW, right? That was the whole point of all these subgroups. They were taking different aspects of getting the treaty ratified and concentrating on that. So
So in order to find out what others are doing, you need to write to them.
yeah, but I don't have their listservs. Ralph, as Peter said, was the one who has some kind of central email. I can certainly write to Ralph and say, give us your email list if you don't think you're in charge anymore, and we'll call a meeting.
I'll put his email and phone number in the chat. You can call him. That's it, even better.
His
Right.
email, the one that
Well, he's not a
I
director
was
anymore.
using was an Arepa email, so that might be a problem. Although, actually, I guess he responded to it the other day, so.
But you have
Maybe
a phone number for him as well,
not a problem, maybe.
Ellen?
I think,
Yeah.
let me look it
Yeah.
up right now.
Right.
I'll
Okay.
look it up too.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's my opinion. We've got to, we all came together for the anniversaries of the coming into force, right? We had some big shindigs for that. But to me, this second meeting is probably even more important. I mean, we're going to, there's this, what Linda was circulating was, which I've seen circulated by other organizations, was a letter to the US mission to the UN, headed by Linda Thomas Greenfield, our ambassador to the UN, asking them to send an observer to this meeting. So even if you aren't a ratified or signatory, you can send an observer. And so that's what we all signed on for.
And what did we hope that would accomplish?
Well, maybe they'll send an observer. I doubt if the UN and our ambassador to the UN herself would go, but maybe they'd send some lower down person.
Well, but if they did, then what would we get out of it?
We get out that they'd be a bit better informed, and would be showing some interest, and so there are several countries going to be sending observers who haven't yet even signed it. It's usually some indication that maybe the government of that country is actually seriously considering it. Now, probably wouldn't be the case with the US.
No, it certainly would not.
But nevertheless, it's just to remind them that there's a bunch of us who think they should ratify it. That's part of why you write to these people. And personally, I'm going to have our delegation. I'm going to write. It's very difficult to write to these people. You have to go on their website and fill in a form. I'm going to ask Ambassador Greenfield if she wouldn't mind meeting with the WILF delegation while we're in New York. Her office is just across the street from the UN, and she'll be in the UN building. There's other business going on all the time in the UN. So, you know, again, I'm going to be asking her if we can meet with her, and she'll probably say no. I mean, I'm not doing it now because she's so busy, as I said, shooting down ceasefire requests from other in the Security Council, right? There have been several resolutions in the Security Council that
Okay,
there
sure.
should be a ceasefire.
Let's let Judy get a word in here.
Yeah, yes, Judy.
I was just going to say that several cities have passed resolutions in favor of the TPNW. And there's a list of those on ICANN, I think. So
There's a
that
list of several places.
Right, right. So that's something to look into to see how it's increased over time and so on. So
Right. Well, no, we would go. I mean, believe me, I wouldn't go without preparing if she agrees to see us, I will
so you
spend
would see
hours
those two.
preparing
Okay, good.
preparing to meet with her. You know, you don't walk into those unprepared. So being able to tell her about all those resolutions and nuclear free zones and things would be something. Yes, we would mention that, but I doubt we'd get a meeting with her. But you know, you ask anyway. That brings them to become aware of what is you're worried about. So, we're going to be in New York for a week, you know. Yes,
Go
Judy,
off,
Ellen.
go off video, Cheryl.
Okay, am I still sorry? Okay. Anyway, so I see you've put Ralph with a riseup.net.
That's
And
his
his phone
personal,
number.
and I got
Carol,
that.
now I can't see you now.
Well, it isn't seeing it. You couldn't hear her before because of her.
Oh, you couldn't hear her? Oh, I could hear her fine.
There was,
I can't hear her though.
yeah.
Anyway, yes, I turn my video off. It helps with the amount of
You
bandwidth
don't
that's
break
being
up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, let the minutes reflect that I'll take it upon myself to contact Ralph Hutchinson, find out if he'll give me the email list of all the other subgroups and see about calling a meeting as a second meeting of states parties, so people can, you know, exchange what they've been doing, or who else is going to that meeting, and so on and so forth. So I think that would be good.
Okay, that's great. So one of the things that that we did here in Salem a while back was to we had a nonviolence training, and in the afternoon of the nonviolence training, at the request of some of the members, I ran an exercise in strategic planning, which I think was useful, and I'll tell you why. But did you all get that sheet that I included with the minutes?
Yeah, well, I resent it. When I sent the minutes, I resent it.
Okay, great. So
so
the what we did was brainstorm a list of ideas that people had. So we put about probably 20 ideas that people thought might be good. And our goal is listed there at the top of the sheet. It's to grow the movement for nuclear abolition here in the Pacific Northwest. And that's the goal. So the goal is not abolishing nuclear weapons. The goal is, for us, is building the movement. And so people came up with a whole bunch of ideas, and we voted on them with, you know, everybody got 4 votes. And they went up there and they put on the sheet what their votes were. And then we took the top 4 vote getters and we put them across the top of that sheet where it says, write the tactic there.
right.
And then we asked people to break up into twos and to go down that sheet and start filling in how those tactics matched up against the criteria that are down the left side of the sheet there.
So excuse me a moment. So what you're calling tactics on this sheet, this all was described in the minutes for the last meeting that I sent to you all this morning. I call them actions because at the time you were calling them, you said you came up with the top 4 actions out of your list of 20. And now you're calling them tactics.
Yeah, same idea.
Okay.
So it would be something like do a demonstration at the one nuclear weapons contractor that we have in the area here. And
Who is that?
it's called Collins Aerospace. And they make a part for the Sentinel, which is the replacement for the Minuteman III. And so we're in the process of researching them some. One of our members is doing pretty good work on that. But anyway, we kind of put that up there. That was, that might have been one of the tactics. I don't think it was actually, but that would have been one of the things that we could have done. So then you ask yourself all those questions that are down the right side, the left side of the sheet that says, well, will this actually build the movement? And does it have a pocketbook angle? That is it going to attract people's attention because it affects them financially? And will it build leadership, especially young leadership? And, questions like that. And it turned out that all the ideas that people kind of liked at the first, when they first were looking at the list, all did not meet the criteria very well. So we managed to convince ourselves that no, none of these ideas that people voted for in their first blush of enthusiasm were in fact a good idea in terms of achieving the goal. And so we have agreed to do this again at a local NAN meeting. And it occurred to me that maybe some other groups would like to do this as well, and do a little bit of very conscious strategic thinking about the things that they choose to do, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, let's go out in the streets again and get another demonstration with 20 or 30 people out there. So anyway, this is what we're doing here. And I just thought I'd suggest that to everybody else. It's not an easy task, when you get down to actually writing down, filling out the blocks in the sheet. It doesn't turn out to be as easy as you might think, but I think it's a very good exercise for people to be thinking through in that way.
Do you have the questions? Do you have this written down that you could send?
It's there.
Oh, it's in the minutes that Cheryl.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Yeah.
It's in the minutes and it's in the sheet, sheet he sent
Alright,
us. But
I'll have to look at that. I'm sorry.
the point is, did they know when you asked them to think of actions, did they know that these were the criteria you were going to use to judge them against?
No.
You see, now if you told them, I think if you told them, we need some actions to help us build our local movement, they would have come up with a different set of actions who would have been more in tune with your criteria. But if you didn't tell them that,
Well, I have two answers to that. First of all, the part of the exercise is to impress upon people that the first thing you look at that kind of grabs you and you think, well, boy, that sounds like a good idea, might not be a good idea when you start submitting it to criteria. And the second answer is the second time we do it, people have already seen this sheet, and I have sent it around to our local group at least once, maybe a couple of times now. I think twice now. And so, plus the list, I kept the list of actions that we had proposed and the ones that had gotten, and all the votes that they had gotten and stuff. And I sent that around as well. So the second time we do it, Cheryl, your suggestion will certainly have been met.
Right, but then you were wondering if some other subgroups, some other, our Wolf Branch or somebody, for example, wanted to do a similar exercise. But I mean, I would tell them
Well, then do it. Do it.
that I would tell them that building the movement, to work against nuclear weapons was actually what the actions should be towards. It's because that might influence some of the actions they came up with. I mean, I think you've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 6 criteria here, and which I think are all very pertinent. How did you come up with those 6 criteria down the left-hand column?
Well, that's a selected list from a larger number that were in a tool of this sort that I got from the Midwest Academy years ago. I've been using this tool for some time.
Is that one called a beautiful something?
Beautiful Trouble?
Yeah.
No, it's before that.
Before that, okay.
It's the Midwest Academy was kind of had its heyday. I don't know if it still exists, but it had its heyday in the 90s. And
Midwest Academy of what?
Oh, I see.
just called the Midwest Academy. I don't know.
At the very bottom, he's put a URL. At the very bottom of the grid, I see. Well, it says users. I don't know. That may be on your computer, Peter.
Oh yeah, that's just where I find it.
On your computer. So one would have to Google Midwest Academy or something to.
Yeah. Anyway, I have a manual that they put out years ago, and I found it to be very useful in terms of strategic planning. So I found that when I used the original version of their sheet, that it was just too huge for a training, and so I trimmed it down somewhat to those 6 criteria, which I think are good ones. They're not necessarily the only ones. And if a person decided that other criteria were more important, changing that sheet is not a big deal.
Right.
But the point is that it's really a good idea to subject the proposals for actions to a thinking process that puts the goal at the top and then asks one in a very organized way, will it meet this criterion? Will it meet this criterion? Will it meet this criterion?
Right.
I think that's really, a good thing to be doing. And I really want our group to do that. And they've all agreed that it's a good thing to do. So we're going to do it next meeting.
That is your Oregon Peaceworks group.
Well, it's nuclear abolition now. Yeah.
Right. So but you sent it to us in a PDF. So if we wanted to revise it, some other group, we'd need it in.
Yeah, I could send it to you as an XLS.
Right, something that we can, please, or a table in Word.
I could do that as well.
Yeah, okay.
That would be better.
Yeah.
It'd be simpler.
But your main purpose is to try to build your movement about for the prohibition of nuclear weapons in your part of Oregon.
Yeah, and I have been arguing all along, as you guys all know,
Mhm.
that what we really need to do is to have a lot more people involved with our movement before we're going to be able to get any kind of a reaction out of Congress. And, ultimately, we do have to go to Congress. And ultimately, we are going to have to get the United States to do something. I don't know if it's going to be sign the TPNW or if it's going to be some other set of bilateral or multilateral agreements between the nuclear club members. There's going to have to be something like that. But at this point, there's not a prayer of getting the government behind this until we get the people behind it. That's my opinion. And so working on that kind of stuff, nothing wrong with it. I mean, doing the groundwork and the spade work in Congress, nothing wrong with that. But if that's the main thing that we do, and that does not seem to be building our movement very well, which seems to me to be the case, then we need to find some other tactics. And so that's what I think we need to be doing.
So it is interesting, the difference in the numbers of people who will come out for various issues. So, in San Francisco on October the 4th, we had a Peace in Ukraine demonstration asking for a ceasefire and diplomacy in Ukraine to bring that terrible war to a close. And of course, we had 75, we reckoned about 75 people came. We were in downtown San Francisco, and it was advertised very widely. There were like 10 organizations represented. Then you get the awful things that happened on October the 7th, and all our realizations since just how awful the people in Gaza have been treated the last 15 years, and how they're being treated right now, right? They were told to move to the south. They all, 600,000 of them moved to the south of the Wadi line, and now they're bombing them down there. I mean, anyway, the point is 100,000 people came out in London to support the Palestinians, and 10,000 people came, the same group, 10,000 people came out in San Francisco that following week. Essentially the same organizations that we managed to get 75 people. They managed to get 10,000 people on the streets of San Francisco following, as a reaction to this Gaza-Israel war. So it really is interesting. My point is that different issues somehow appeal to people at different levels. And so some issues can get 10,000 people out, and some issues can only get 75 people out. And nuclear weapons are, people don't haven't got it in their guts. They don't hear about murdered babies and bombed buildings. Those kind of videos that we've been seeing, and I look at the BBC News every day. I see these pictures of hospitals overrun in the Gaza Strip and what have you. Anyway, that kind of thing will apparently bring people out. So
okay, let me take two things in relation to that statement. Number one, when you find that a tactic is not bringing people out, and you say, well, these other people brought people out, and you say, and we, our group, our issue did not bring people out. Well, what seems to me you do at that point is you strategize, and you say, okay, well, people are not wanting to do that. And then you can start asking yourself why, and build some build some experiments based on your analysis of why. So that's the one thing that how many people come out is not the only measure as to how of whether you're building a movement or not.
Right.
Because people coming out only, only has a significance if they come out again and again and again, and every time they come out, they get larger. That's the only way that has any significance at all.
And are
So,
they writing to their Congress people as well, or are they just?
are they doing whatever? Are they doing whatever that are they building a culture in their country that relates to the whole question of getting the goal, achieving the goal. The goal is abolishing nuclear weapons. So, are we able to move the needle at all with this particular tactic? My answer is no. We're not moving the needle with that tactic. So, let's not invest so much energy in trying to get people. There always people are saying we've got to hit the streets, and I'm not sure that's right. I don't think we've done the educational work. We did the educational work in the 80s, and I think one of the most powerful things about the educational work that was done in the 80s was when the Physicians for Social Responsibility started saying, here's what's going to happen if a nuclear bomb hits your city. Remember that?
Mhm, mhm.
You remember
Yeah.
those, the circles around, they showed your city, a map of your city, and they had the circles that showed here's the total destruction, and here's, mostly destroyed, and here's everybody dead, and, and out moving from the center. I think that's really shocked people when they saw that. I thought it was very effective. Another thing that was really effective was when the movie the day after came out, and it really kicked people in the butt, and said, wow, this is much worse than I was thinking. And so there was a lot of educational work that needed to be done. And Oppenheimer was a great opportunity for that, but the Hollywood folks who made it did not seize that opportunity the way they could have. But then we did not really seize that opportunity the way we could have either. So, I think there's a lot of educational work that needs to be done. And I don't think that we're going to succeed in bringing people out until we do that educational work. And if we say we don't have time to do that educational work, I say, well, we don't have any choice but to do that educational work. So let's think about how we educate the public as to this being a problem the way that we did back 40 years ago.
I have a feeling there's just something about today that is, I don't know what, but I had a friend who told me she loved my letter that I wrote recently about the TPNW. Great letter, great letter. And in the letter, I said, write your congressperson. So I said to her, did you write your congressperson? She says, no. So, I got halfway there, but she didn't take any action. People are not, I don't know how you get people out to take action, really.
Right.
It's very difficult.
Well, in the 80s, when I was helping to organize the American Peace Test, we came up with this crazy idea of getting people to go down to the Nevada test site and get themselves arrested down there.
Oh, wow.
And, and if you can imagine, I'd been very active with the Freeze campaign. So I had in my lists the names of all the leaders of the Freeze campaigns in every state. And if you can imagine making phone calls that started, where I would pick up the phone, I would call somebody who barely knew me, probably knew who I was, but didn't know anything about me other than we met a few times at Freeze meetings, and say, I want you to bring a group of people down to the Nevada test site on the 25th of October to get arrested down there. Can you imagine getting a phone call like that? And yet it worked. It worked. That was the beginning of the American Peace Test. We had different groups of people from every state coming down there every day for the 30 days leading up to the summit between Reagan and Gorbachev at Reykjavik. Every day there were people down at the Nevada test site getting arrested for this for 30 days. And they came from virtually every state in the union. And that was the beginning of it. And then, of course, we amped it up from there. By 2 years later, we were getting 5,000 people out to get to be camped in the desert and getting arrested at the test site. We had 1,200 people arrested in one day down there in March of 1988. And this all came from an idea that just seemed kind of crazy from the start. But we tried it. And we subjected it to test after test, you know, because in my local area, we were going to, me and my co-worker were going to all the local peace groups in the area, and there were a lot more of them than there are now. But we were going to the peace groups and people and anything that might be considered to be a peace group. And we were saying, would you give us 15 minutes of your agenda? And they would say yes. And then we would go down and we made a very pointed presentation asking them to come down the Nevada test site on a certain day and to be part of an Oregon delegation. And that very first time we got a yes from every group that we went to. I was astounded.
Well, now don't forget the tests. The tests affected everybody. There are no tests today.
Yeah, that's right. But
Then
you know,
can-
I'm not
in other
saying
words,
I'm
when
not saying
people are
that
directly affected. It's easier to get them to turn out. But
I'm
most
not saying that
people-
I'm not saying that testing is the right thing to use today. I don't think it is. But
No.
we need to find the thing, the key.
If we can find the thing, yeah, that if we can.
That's the thing, and
Well-
and we won't find the key if we always say, "Oh, let's go out and demonstrate in front of so and so's office." You know, we already know that isn't working.
You don't have to go demonstrate, but like, for example, 3 of us from our 3 different peace groups are going to go talk to our elected rep in November about the TPNW and get him on board. We think might already be, get him activate, you know, act more active. Talk to him about that. But, you know.
Well, that's great.
You
I
know,
mean, to
let
go
you
in.
know how it goes, but, you know, he says, yeah, I support you, and then doesn't do anything. It's kind of.
Well, you know, I think it's great to go in and ask your member of Congress to do it. I think it's fine to go out and bring a crowd if you can outside
Go out
their
and what,
office
please?
and
Go
to
out.
bring a crowd if you can to get them to do
Now,
it. Now,
this is
let me
something
finish.
I wrote letters to every single peace group in town, and again, nobody wanted to do that.
Okay. So, you know, if you, I mean,
If you can
I
get it,
think
good luck.
we got our local representatives to sign on to HRIS 77 with pretty little effort. You know, we just got a meeting, you know, and Tim
Oh, that's a good idea. I see what you mean.
kind of put it together.
Something minor issues, yeah.
Tim kind of put it together with you know,
Good idea.
people that went into her office in DC, and then we had a Zoom connection out here, and we had about 6 or 8 people on this end, and about 5 or 8 people in the office down there. And she said, yes, we'll do that. You know, and we asked her to sign on to 2775, and she didn't do that. And, you know, it's fine to do that kind of thing, but that isn't going to move the needle very much, you know? So when we can ask a person like that to do it and they say yes pretty quickly, then that's great, you know, and we can say, oh yeah, we've got we got another sponsor on this. That's great. But we have to have a movement that has the power to convince the Chuck Schumers of the world and the, you know, and the, you know, and the Senator Wydens of the world, and, you know, the people who can be had, but won't be had easily. You know, I'm not talking about Markey.
Right. So, Peter, how are you going to show them that there are a lot of people if it's not getting how many of thousands it was in Central Park? How are you going to prove to them that, in fact, you have a lot of people, except by having them go outside so somebody can see them?
Okay.
Well, I don't know
That's a
that
good,
it's
that's
necessarily
a,
a matter of having a lot of people outside. It's a matter of the issue itself is critical.
Yeah,
I
but
argue
he's
there.
talking about convincing Congress
Right.
that there are a lot of
Not
people worried about
individual Congress people, by people who are
so
voting.
when we can call a meeting, when we can call a
Right.
demonstration outside of a congressperson's office, and we can get a good sized crowd out there,
Or this.
and then if
another
they don't, and then if they don't do it, then we can call another crowd out there again 2 weeks later and have it be bigger.
Lots of luck.
Then then we're starting to move on
Yeah.
this sort of thing. And it's the same thing with the 10,000 people who were in San Francisco. I think it was last week.
Right.
If the next time they call a demonstration in San Francisco, they get 5,000 people out, then they should stop doing that until they can get 15,000 people instead. And I'm put in mind of a guy that I got a training one time from a guy who was one of the team that deposed Milosevic in Serbia. So they actually deposed a sitting dictator. They had a very powerful movement. And one of the things I took away from that training, probably the most powerful thing, was he said, if your next demonstration is not larger than your last demonstration, don't do it.
Well, how do you know if it's going to be larger?
Well, that's what organizing is for.
But you don't know that organizing is going to do it.
Well, so if it isn't, then you stop doing it. Because
you mean
what
if you
a
try,
demonstration,
you fail, and you stop.
well, then you do a different tactic. You don't stop. You do a different tactic
Well, I
So-
mean, you stop doing this, whatever it was.
because a demonstration is what? Why is it called a demonstration? It's called a demonstration because it's a demonstration of the amount of support that we have. So
Right.
if we are demonstrating that we have very little support, we are demonstrating the wrong thing.
But you won't know till you try a demonstration, right?
So, well,
Right.
Code Pink for the peace in Ukraine actions we've had, and Code Pink owns the software. You can sign up to say you're coming, and how many people you're bringing, and so you have some feel for how many people have signed up. But
Mhm.
invariably, there's actually more people that come because some people don't actually they hear about it, but they don't go and sign up on the sign up fee
Right.
page. But they come anyway, and people, so that's one way you could say one has some inkling of how many people are going to turn up, because you've got a sign up website where you've asked people to sign up to promise they'll come. I mean, in your day, I suppose, Peter, you had a phone call, you talked to a real person, and then you got some sense from that conversation, oh yes, they'll bring 5 people or so. Whereas nowadays we put up a website and we ask people to sign in there, and
Mhm.
sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So anyway, it's an interesting, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but the question is, who is actually counting? So are the media, if we can't even get the media to come to some of these actions.
Right.
Well, they'll
So,
come when there's something to report.
well, to us,
They
15
don't know that there's something to report till they get there.
15 people came out to support this or that is not news
Yeah.
unless they decide that it is. But
right.
most people would not
Right.
consider that news.
Yeah, well,
If it's the first time that something like that's been done on a particular issue, and you get 500 people out, yeah, they'll show up.
well, we had KPFA, our local liberal station, came out for a demonstration we did, I know 6 weeks ago, and they interviewed us. I mean, there were only 10 of us at the corner, but they decided to come anyway. They didn't know there was only going to be 10 of us. And we were interviewed, and it got on the KPFA, which
Okay.
is listened to by quite a few people. Anyway, I'm looking at the time. I have a 5 o'clock meeting over at Stanford University for which I need to leave at 4:45. So can we move
Okay.
on through the agenda?
Yes, I think we can. I just wanted to make this suggestion that you
Right,
try using this tool with
Oh,
your
right.
with your local groups.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, let's move on. There was a Back from the Brink hub meeting this afternoon, which I was supposed to be at, and I am really sorry to say that I spaced it. It was on my calendar. I looked at it this morning, and then something else came into my. I've been sick, and my head is not working as well as it sometimes does.
Oh dear.
But anyway, I spaced it, so I didn't go. Well, I showed up at the last little bit of it, so I don't know what happened, and I can't give you a good report about Back from the Brink. But I know that they are. Back from the Brink is one of the groups that is focusing in both directions, both in Congress and building the local level. So
Right.
I'm pleased with them for that. And I want to keep working with them. But I can't really tell you what happened today. So sorry about that.
But we
No.
know they're pretty well organized. They do have a lot of people out there, and so I think we can depend on them carrying on, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like what my connection with those folks has been a good one. There's a guy named Jeremy Love and Joe Scarry, and of course Ira Helfand is part of that. And yeah, some good people that are involved with that. And I think they have some strategic smarts.
Right. So remind me, I'm looking at the minutes that I wrote of the last meeting. This was a bit where I was a bit vague. McGovern has a bill. So is that the 77? It's actually a resolution. Is that the
Yeah,
McGovern bill, or is there a
I
different
haven't.
bill?
No, HRES 77. Yeah, that's the McGovern one.
Right.
And the other one is the one that Ellen has been telling us about for some
Right, right.
time.
275775. Right. Okay. All right, and we know they're still trying to get resolutions passed by city councils and what have you, right? That continues to be one of their strategies.
Yeah. I don't know how active that is at this point, whether there's still a lot of cities that are looking like doing it, but it is a good tactic, especially if it's a hard thing to do in your city, because it allows a lot more movement building. In Salem, I went to the city council, of whom I know most of the people on it. I went to the city council, I made a presentation, they got interested in it right away. The mayor said, yeah, we're going to do something about this. And the day that we actually had the resolution before them was, I think, the day after the invasion of Ukraine. And so, I mean, you can't plan that sort of thing, of course, but they voted unanimously for it, and it was very easy to do. And consequently, it didn't have much of a movement building effect.
Right.
Same with Davis. We got our city council to pass a resolution. It was not that difficult.
Whereas here in Palo Alto, just to get something on the agenda is a big brouhaha. You have to get 3 of the 7 council members to agree that such a thing should be put on the agenda. And we've never managed to get 3 of
Is
them.
that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's a bureaucratic nightmare is Palo Alto. And they used to have 9 council members, and now they reduced it to 7, which actually was a silly idea because they have a lot of subcommittees that have to be populated. And so the people who are on the council have got to go to more subcommittees that take them away from major issues. Anyway, so all right, so do you want, so we talked about warheads to windmills earlier. They had a very nice, their webinar was on October the 14th. I thought that was interesting. They actually did have some climate change people, and they are, the book isn't out yet. All right, we've got this 32-page summary of the research that Tim and Wallace has been doing for 7 or 8 years on this idea, and he looks at the jobs, how jobs would be affected, and where the people are, and do they have the right skills, but there's a book coming out which he's been having to try to come out for the last 6 months, I think, but he was waiting. A lot of people have been reviewing the book content for him, so it's hundreds of pages long.
Yeah, I'm one of the ones that's doing that.
Yes, you've been, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I've just gotten his most recent thing, and I wasn't feeling well enough to look at it, but I told him that I'd try and look at it today.
Okay.
Don't know if we'll get to that today. But
So they're having a planning meeting at 5 o'clock our time
Yes.
today,
yes,
27 minutes, and I'm hoping Ellen can go and represent Wilf at that. So they are trying to get more climate people.
right.
They've got, because they came from the nuclear weapons side of things, there's a lot of nuclear weapons people in the coalition. They're trying to get more climate people worrying about the climate into that, into the whole coalition. It is a coalition of organizations. So, I think, as I said, they're trying to get this hookup between COP28 in Dubai and the meeting of the states parties in New York City on the 30th of November. I think that's a fine idea to who exactly how it'll work and who's going to be at each end. That I'm still waiting for Timon to explain that. But anyway,
Explain
that's the kind of explain what is it we would do at each end. We're sitting in a room at each end of this live stream, but what are we actually going to do while we're in that room is what he hasn't said to me yet. I can commit to be in a place, in a room in the UN at a certain time on a certain date, but I need to know what it is I'm supposed to do when I'm in that room. That's
Yeah. Well,
I mean, he's working that out. I mean, there's, we've got another month before we get there. So I'm not worried, but I do like to, be given some instructions what I'm supposed to do.
yeah.
So our local you have local activity. Well, here in Palo Alto, we have our weekly demonstration, or we call it a vigil because it's silent. We just have signs. We stand on that busy corner. Tens of thousands of cars pass by in that hour. It's a very busy intersection. And so we've been doing, we've had to pivot now to ceasefire in Gaza, right? As things happen, our signs change, and we change our and we get a lot of friendly honks. People walking by agree with us, and so on and so forth. So that has rather taken everybody's attention from Ukraine and from nuclear weapons. But I think it's worth that we do talk about Gaza. I mean, I read the BBC News 10 times a day, and they are, showing you photographs of what's going on and graphics of, how much water. A regular person needs 100 liters of water a day for all the things you would use water for. They're getting 1 liter of water a day, the people in Gaza at the moment. So they can't wash themselves, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just horrific. Anyway, anybody else done anything local recently?
Let's see if Holly has anything. She hasn't said anything yet.
Well, GVCP is part of the Warheads to Windmills Coalition, and so I was
What
hoping
does that
to
stand
get
for?
in on that meeting. What's that?
What does that stand for, GB?
Oh,
Genesee Valley.
GCP is the Genesee Valley Citizens for Peace, which is the organization that I'm part of, one of the organizations I'm part of. It's a long-standing peace organization in Livingston County, but Livingston County does not have a city. It's a very rural county, so you know, we involve ourselves sometimes in bigger actions in Rochester, New York. So actually, if we get, 10, 15 people out on a street corner in Geneseo, which is our county seat, it's a village, we think we're doing good. And that's typically, we're out there for the International Day of Peace. We are meeting on Saturday and planning actions from there. We're part of Peace Action New York State, and they just did their awards, which I attended virtually. Through Peace Action, there's a student chapter that that our organization, Genesee Valley Citizens for Peace, is allied with. It's a student peace action group that's part of Geneseo State College, the State University of New York at Geneseo. So we do have the benefit of having some young people that we work with, and they do some events on their own, but they typically invite us, and we invite them to all of ours, and so we do have that. We have a mailing list of about 300 people, but it's really difficult to get people to come out, and many of them are older and don't want to do actions anymore. And we usually get good press from the local press. When we did the whole Golden Rule tour stop, when the boat stopped in Rochester, and our peace group and the Rochester chapter of Veterans for Peace hosted events there, we got a lot of coverage, and I was, on the radio, and there was a lot of activity and a lot of press, but our press is usually limited to the county newspaper. I don't know. And it's difficult. It feels like our numbers are dropping when things are getting worse in terms of people actually coming out to demonstrations, to respond to emails. And it feels like when I send too many emails out to the membership, it's almost like some kind of formula. And I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like, you hit that too many number, and all of a sudden I start to get unsubscribers, people that are dropping out because they don't want to read all the emails. And I totally get it, because I'm on overwhelm 24/7. But I don't know. I reached out to the executive director of Peace Action New York State, and said, I would like to be part of the contingent going to New York City for the second meeting of states parties. And she put me on the list, but I have no idea what I'll be doing. But I'm gonna go, I guess.
Oh, good.
I'd like to.
Well, have you seen the list of the ICANW list of events that are not in the UN, outside the Sphinx?
No,
Oh yeah. Let me.
I'd like to.
I'm going to put it in the chat for you.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Before Cheryl leaves, let's get back to the question of next meeting.
Yes, I just looking at my diary. I would be available on Tuesday the 14th. I think missing that whole week of Thanksgiving is a good idea.
Okay,
I agree.
What do other people
Agreed,
think?
agreed, agreed.
Okay. And it would be at 6 Eastern,
It's
6
no,
Eastern,
it's 3:30, 6:30.
6:30.
And what day? What day?
Tuesday,
That's
the
back to
14th,
Tuesday.
November what?
14th,
Oh, 14th?
the
Thank you.
second Tuesday.
Well,
Right.
Peter, you'll be sending out an email, right? So,
Well, if
Yeah.
we can all agree. I know our program
Oh.
committee meets, but being at 3:30 is good because I have a lot of meetings that seem to come up at 5 because they're 8
3:30
o'clock.
Eastern, 3:30 Eastern,
No, 3:30 Californian.
3:30 Pacific.
Just like today.
Mhm.
If
So that
somebody's sending out a link, I would assume.
I'll
Would-
send it out to,
Yes.
I'll send it to Peter and then Peter will send it to everybody, right?
Okay, sounds good.
Does that work?
right. And the link you use continues always to redirect us to another page, but it seems
Well,
to work.
we have a listserv, don't we? So we can just, I'll just send.
Yeah,
it.
you could just send it directly to Lissa.
Let you know.
Okay.
As I say, I promise that very soon I will be in touch with Ralph and about his email list, about getting the other subgroups who used to be part of the collaboration to find out what they're doing about this meeting in New York. And so obviously I'll have that meeting well before the 14th. Okay. And I can, send to our Google list because I'm on that list, and I'll just have to use the heads of the other lists because I'm not on the other lists, right?
Okay.
Okay. But so I'm going to go. The rest of you can keep talking. Just don't worry about me. I'm leaving now. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Cheryl, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Please look at the minutes. I did stay up late to finish them last night.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all. Yeah, I've got to go too. But we'll see you and I'll let you know how our meeting goes with our rep.
Are we done, Peter? Do we have any?
Oh, I was going to see whether anybody else had local activity that they want to talk about. We had some.
Oh,
Well, I'll see you all later. Take care.
Okay, Judy.
Thank you.
Okay.
bye, Judy.
We had some in that we had and it's not really nuclear activity. We did have the training that I mentioned earlier, and that I thought was very useful. And then we had our Salem Peace Lecture, which is something that we've been doing for the last 34 years. We had Liz Theoharis of the Poor People's Campaign come and talk in Salem here, and it was quite well attended at least for Salem. And we had one of our best collections of funds that we've ever had. And people seemed to really like what she had to say. I thought she could have been a little bit more specific, but she was inspirational to a lot of people. So that was good.
What'd she
And-
talk about?
Huh?
What'd she talk about?
She talked about the interconnections between poverty, militarism, and racism. And I think she made some good connections. And there were some good questions asked. Also, NAN, our Nuclear Abolition Now group, tabled at the Peace Lecture, outside the Peace Lecture, and the woman who handled the table for us said that she had some very good connections and handed out a lot of leaflets and things. So that is useful. Got some signatures on the petition and so forth. So
What petition are you using?
We're using one asking, let's see, the one,
Is it the Back from the Brink petition or is it?
oh, it's our own,
your own?
and it was directed, I think it was directed at, this particular petition was directed at our member of Congress, Andrea Salinas, and it was asking her to sign on to 2775. But she's already signed on to HRS 77.
There's a lovely lady's face that just appeared over your shoulder.
Yeah, that's my wife,
I have a
Alice.
question to ask Peter when his meeting is over.
Okay.
Is the meeting winding down? Or?
Yeah, we've already lost several of the people.
Yeah,
so-
it doesn't look like a crowd tonight.
Yeah, I have to go because I have somebody who just showed up who's about to power wash my front porch, and he's got.
All right.
So.
Well, let's
Okay.
since we've completed the agenda, let's adjourn now, and we'll meet at a different time next month.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
Thank
send
you.
it to you tonight.
Okay, thank you all.
All right.
Great.
And I'll
Thanks.
send you
Good
the
night.
link to the recording if you want to have it.
Oh, great. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.